What you are about to hear is a woman's actual experience with an abortion. It is extremely graphic and is not suitable for children. Abby Johnson started a career with Planned Parenthood thinking she was helping women in crisis. But her perspective changed dramatically the day she was asked to help with a procedure. She began comforting the woman on the table as she held the camera over the woman's stomach so the doctor could see the ultrasound image of the baby. The doctor made an injection, and the baby moved abruptly. Tears began to form in Johnson's eyes as she witnessed the unborn child fight for its life. "Beam me up, Scotty," the doctor said casually. Then, with the touch of a button, a vacuum-like device sucked the baby from the womb and into a jar, where it lay in pieces, bloodied and dead. Johnson had just witnessed a live abortion. She had spent her entire career convincing thousands of women that abortion was a viable option for an unwanted pregnancy. But until that moment, she had never seen the procedure performed, and she was horrified. She ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and began to cry. That's the opening scene from Unplanned, a movie currently in theaters that delves into the true story of a woman who went from being one of Planned Parenthood's strongest advocates to being one of its most outspoken critics.
It wasn't the death of the children. That's not what caused me to change my mind on abortion. It was seeing the humanity of this child in the womb.
We spoke with Abby Johnson to hear her story.
Let's go back to your growing up. I understand you come from a Christian background. What shaped your view of abortion initially?
It was really just ignorance. I mean, I was raised in a pro-life home, but we didn't talk about abortion. My parents weren't activists or anything like that. We just sort of said we were pro-life, but we didn't really live like we were pro-life. We didn't go to any rallies. We didn't talk about abortion around the dinner table. So I went to college, met a woman with Planned Parenthood. She started giving me all their talking points, and at that time, it all just sort of made sense to me because I didn't know any different. And that's originally how I got involved.
What was the selling point to you when you first talked to a Planned Parenthood representative? What was it about it that was appealing to you?
Just this notion that they were there to provide health care to low-income women, empowering women, making sure that if a woman did have, was put in the unfortunate position of needing to have an abortion, that it would be done in a safe environment. They wouldn't have to go to these back alley clinics, things like that.
What type of women go to the Planned Parenthood clinic?
Desperate women. Women walk into abortion clinics because they feel like they have no other choice. Women who are vulnerable, who are alone, who are scared. Women who feel like abortion is their only viable option. I mean, those are the women who are choosing abortion.
I'm interested in the process. They depict this in the movie, how you are trained how to speak to these women who may have doubts that this may or may not be the right thing to do, but they don't feel like they have any other choice. What's sort of the process that you go through to try and convince these women that this is a choice you need to make?
So you're trained when you work in the clinic. You go through a training program that trains you how to overcome objections that women may have, who are, hesitant about an abortion decision, or maybe they're, religious and they're worried that abortion is a sin. And so you're taught how to overcome those objections, and to essentially sell these women an abortion. And you're a trained salesperson. You're there to sell their highest revenue generating product to as many women as you can, and that product is abortion.
So what kind of things do you say to them?
It just depends on their situation. So if a woman comes in and she says, I'm just worried that this is a sin, and God's not going to forgive me. Then the answer is, well, don't you believe in a forgiving God? Yes. Well, don't you believe that, God understands what you're going through right now and wants you to make the best choice for yourself and your current family and your future family, and that he's a God of forgiveness? Yes. So, you talk to him about that. If a woman says, I'm worried that the baby's going to feel pain. And you say, oh, that's a concern that a lot of women have, but, scientists have made the decision that the baby has no sensory development until at least 28 weeks. So that's not something you need to worry about right now. The baby will feel nothing. And so just things like that. And there's just all these objections that women can come up with, and you're trained on how to overcome those.
I understand, you had 2 abortions prior to working at Planned Parenthood, and then you ended up having a child while you were working there. How did you at that time justify in your mind that line of work?
Yeah, so I had 1 abortion before I started working there. I had 1 abortion while I was working there, and then a few years later I had my daughter, Grace. And I can say it really wasn't difficult for me to do that mental gymnastics in my head. It was all about wantedness. So we're valued based upon our wantedness. That's how abortion is sold to these women, sold to society. So, I remember one time somebody on the sidewalk, a pro-lifer on the sidewalk, I was like very big pregnant with Grace, and they said, something about me being pregnant or something. And, how do I reconcile that? And I said, look, I've had 3 pregnancies in my life. I've made different choices for my pregnancies. Twice, I chose to terminate the pregnancies. Once, I chose to continue the pregnancy. And that was it. It was just that simple for me at the time.
There's a scene in the movie where they show you going into this room, the POC room, which one of your coworkers calls pieces of children. She pulls you into this room, and you actually look at the fetus that's been aborted. And the director of the clinic says, this is how I know you're the one to take my place. Tell me about that whole experience.
Yeah, so that all is actually exactly how that happened. I don't know. I can't really explain how I wasn't bothered by what I saw in that dish that day. I wasn't. I tell people it wasn't the death of these babies that's not what caused me to change my mind on abortion. It was seeing the humanity of this child in the womb. It was seeing this child fighting and struggling for his life. It was seeing that fight or flight response that we all have as humans, recognizing that humanity that's innate in that child is the same humanity that was innate in me, that is innate in me. And, I don't know. I guess I had seen all the pictures, all the people that held the graphic images of babies, and I wasn't shocked by those. So I guess seeing it in real life was not shocking. I remember feeling amazed, for lack of a better word, of what I was seeing in that dish.
Through all of this, you're married to a husband who is pro-life, and
yep.
that throws an interesting marital dynamic into this whole story. Do you have a minute to talk about that?
Yeah, people have asked him, why would you marry somebody that worked at Planned Parenthood? Why would you marry somebody that had, these different sort of beliefs? And I've heard Doug answer before. I've heard him answer people. He said, look, jobs can change, beliefs can change, but I knew that I wanted to love her and be with her forever. And, I think that's a story that we really need in our society today, that you know, the love that we should have for each other in marriage should be unconditional, and that we should do everything we can to work through whatever it is that causes us to struggle in our marriage. And it wasn't that we didn't have struggles in our marriage because of it. We did, but we knew that what we had was worth fighting for. And so that's what we did.
I want to talk for a little bit about the rating of the movie. That's been a source of controversy. It received an R rating, but if you see the movie, there's really nothing in it that warrants that. Comments about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little ironic when we got the R rating. I think the irony is lost on anyone that a 15-year-old girl can walk into an abortion clinic without her parents' consent and have an abortion, but she can't go watch a film about abortion without her parents' consent. You know, it's almost like the MPAA stumbled backwards into the truth by admitting that abortion is violent and that it's disturbing. And it's only disturbing, it's only violent if you recognize that what you are terminating in the womb is a human being, is a human life. And so I'm not really sure how they reconcile that as an organization, as a group. But that's just the reality. If it's just tissue, if it's just cells, if it's just a mass, then it's really no different than what we see on shows depicting surgeries or Dr. Pimple Popper or whatever. I mean, it's no different.
Do you feel like film receiving an R rating was an agenda move?
I think it was definitely agenda driven. Yeah, for sure.
Have you noticed any positive changes as a result of the film's release?
Well, I mean, we're getting messages every day from people who are saying, you know, I walked into the film pro-choice, I walked out pro-life. We're getting messages from women who were contemplating abortion for their current pregnancy, went to see the film, ended up, you know, canceling their abortion appointments, deciding not to have an abortion. Certainly we're hearing from clinic workers who went to go see the film and decided to leave their jobs. So, yeah, I mean, we are hearing a lot of good things.
What's next for you?
I don't know. We're gonna have another book coming out, hopefully this year. I'm working on that right now. We're still just working away on, and then there were none, trying to get as many workers out as we can, trying to shut down as many clinics as we can. But I'm just open to whatever is out there and comes calling next.